Hello friends, welcome back. This is going to be our first meal that we're going to cook for the Three Rivers Challenge 2023. We're actually going to be making pork chops in a homemade shake and bake seasoning, and the husband does like a little honey drizzled on top, so we'll do that also. We're going to make some homemade pepper jack macaroni and cheese, and I just took a can of baked beans out of the pantry and we're going to have that as a side dish. I personally do not eat pork. No religious reasons, I just do not care for it. But the husband does love pork chops, so I will cook that for him. Now, the other day we made some fermented garlic and honey bread. It turned out so good. If you ferment garlic and honey and you have the leftover garlic bits and you make homemade bread, and even if you don't make homemade bread, please start making homemade bread. It was so good. I'm actually going to be making a pepper jack grilled cheese sandwich using that bread. And in my freezer, the last time I made tomato basil soup, I put some quarts in the freezer, so I'm just going to take one of those out from my dinner. So without further ado, aprons on, we're going to go ahead and get started on those pork chops. Got the oven set for 350 degrees, but let me tell you what we have here. This is 1.5 cups of homemade breadcrumbs, the ones we made together, and we just keep in a Ziploc bag in the freezer. And this little ramekin, I have 3/4 teaspoons of garlic powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of paprika, and 1 teaspoon of thyme. We'll add that to the breadcrumbs. And in this bowl I have 1 cup of flour, a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and 1 teaspoon of salt. We're just going to mix that in here together. Now, I have 1 egg. I'm just going to add a splash of water. I'm going to beat that very well. I'm going to have an assembly line. So we're going to do flour, egg, and breadcrumbs and put it on a sheet. So I have 3 pieces of random cut bone-in pork chops here. Just want to get flour all over it. Remember, wet hand, dry hand. So we're going to go into the egg. The flour is just to help the egg stick to something. And we're going to go into the breadcrumbs. And on the cookie sheet. And repeat. I'm patting the breadcrumbs on the pork chops. And the last one. Now, anything left over besides the eggs, we will not throw away. We're going to put the flour in 1 Ziploc bag. We're going to put the breadcrumbs in another Ziploc bag, and then we're going to put that in a Ziploc bag together, and we're going to label it for pork chops. Give my hands a wash. It's not really going to drizzle, but we'll make it work. This adds an element of sweetness and another depth of flavor. to the pork chops and to the homemade shake and bake. Might be less than a half a teaspoon for each one of these pork chops. That's going to go in a 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes until the pork chops are done and the breadcrumbs has a little color to it. Before we do that, I just want to show you I've got the flour and the breadcrumbs, and I just labeled it shake and bake pork chops. The next time we need to cook pork chops, we already know we have some flour and some breading ready for us. The first thing we're going to do is start cooking our macaroni. So I have some water. I'm going to go ahead and put some salt in there. Let that come up to a boil. I have 10 ounces of elbow macaroni. And I took out one of my sliced pepper jack cheese because I have a lot of that and very little of the shreds. So I wanted to use this up first. We have our milk. And if I need to make another one, that's okay, because right over here I have my A2 powdered milk. And I've got a little bit of Parmesan cheese. First thing we want to do is we want to get the water boiling, get the pasta cooked. While that's draining, we'll move on to making the cheese sauce. Now we're going to let the pasta cook for about 7 minutes, because once we make the cheese sauce and we add the pasta into it, it will continue cooking from there. On a side note, this is the Rumiano butter that I get from Azure. This is some butter that I got from Walmart right before Christmas, and that's the last bit I have, so I got to use it. But do you see the difference in the color? This is real butter, grass-fed butter. This is Walmart cheap butter. This is the reason I buy my butter from Azure. When I buy a whole case of 15 pounds, it's because I'd rather have this in my house than this. But we have it, we have to use it. I have a stupid question for you guys. Out of the burners on your stovetop, do you have one that you just gravitate towards? Mine is the left front burner, right here where the pasta's cooking. That is my favorite. And if I have to use more than one, I prefer to use the one in the back and this one. Depending on the size of my pots I'm using, I will use this one. This one right here, it's a smaller burner. I'm not sure what the BTU is, but I very, very, very seldom use that. Then I have a center burner that I have never used. When we got this stove, I was so excited. Oh, I got a 5-burner stove. But I never used that. So the question is, do you have a favorite burner? And how does your rotation work? Mine works left front to back, left front to right front, and the very last one is the center. The next to the last one would be the back right. What is yours? Alright, the pasta was done. I have it in the strainer in the sink waiting. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil, and we're going to add about a tablespoon of butter. We got some heat underneath. Let's go ahead and add our salt and pepper. Just going to melt that butter. Got about 2 tablespoons of flour. Remember, your roux is equal fats, equal flour. I cook the flour just a little bit. Don't want to overcook it because it will lose its thickening agent. Got some milk right here. We're going to add it slowly at first. This helps keep the lumps away. It's starting to thicken up. Got a little bit of Parmesan cheese. Just going to grate that right into the pan. This might be about an ounce to an ounce and a half. Watch your knuckles when you get too small. Usually I just going to take a knife and just start chunking it up in there. And this is our sliced pepper jack cheese that I took out of the freezer. I'm just going to break that in there. Might have been about an inch thick. I don't know how many slices that is. I don't know how many ounces it is, but whatever it is, we're using it. I did save a couple slices for my grilled cheese sandwich to go with my tomato basil soup. I'll let that melt in there. I think I'll add a little bit of onion powder in there. I do not have a recipe. It's just whatever I feel like at that time when I'm cooking. And I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder. Maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon of each of those. Now this is going to be a new one on me. This is mustard powder. I am going to add a pinch of that also. Ooh, not that much. Okay. Maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon. Just something different. It's here. I have it. We'll use it. Cheesy. Ooh. I like that. I need to make a note of that. That was really, really good. Go ahead and add our macaroni pasta. Leave no pasta left behind. Alright, stir that in. And as it cools, the cheese and the flour with the milk will solidify, and we will have it nice and thick. And I'm actually going to put this in a baking sheet, put some breadcrumbs on it. So I have a baking sheet right here with just a little bit of olive oil on there. A paper towel, I'm going to smear that around. And let's put our macaroni and cheese in there. The grandkids are supposed to come over tonight, and they love my macaroni and cheese. So that was another reason I decided I wanted to have macaroni and cheese tonight. So we got our no-cost breadcrumbs. I'm just going to put a nice layer of that right on top. I hope y'all are saving all your bread ends, whether it's homemade or store-bought, so you can also make your own no-cost breadcrumbs. That's all we have left. We're going to have to be making some real soon. I'm just going to put this in the oven until the breadcrumbs get nice and toasted. Pork chops are done. You can see the little honey glaze that's on top. They smell really good. This is the first time I've done and used a homemade shake and bake. So we'll find out if the husband likes it or not. If he does, we'll keep this recipe. If he doesn't, we'll tweak it until we find one that he does like. So when he tastes it, I'll let you know what he thinks. So we have the pork chops right here with the honey glaze on it, and we have the breadcrumb topped baked macaroni and cheese. And the only thing I have to do is open up this can of baked beans and dinner is served. I'm still waiting for my tomato basil soup to thaw, and then I will make myself a grilled cheese sandwich.